balls. Alright, I'm going to try to demonstrate my nunchucks here. Alright, I'm using the foam nunchucks. Normally I try to use the hard ones because I like to be punished for mistakes, but since I am basically trying to show off here, I'm going to use the soft ones, so if I do make a mistake, I won't get hurt. Okay. Got it. Oh, I got part. Hey, I'm done. Yeah. Okay, here I'm going to be trying to show my skills with the staff. I'm going to first do, yeah, great skills, Michael, good show. I'm going to first do the more stilted style, and then I'm going to try to show some more flowery stuff. That's stilted, good flowery. Okay, first thing I'm going to go over with these hook swords is the basic non-weapon attacks that you use when you use the hook swords. Alright, there's the shin. I'm sorry, I just gotta make sure. Okay. Sorry. There's the shin kick, which can also be used as a roundhouse. Okay. There's the spinning back kick, which can be executed in a shorter form, like this. It can also be done as a roundhouse. Right, and then finally, we have the reverse axe kick. Can be also used as a groin kick. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the basic non-classical hook sword moves. Okay. There's your basic moon strike. Then there's just like an overhead strike. And there's a double edge strike. Right? Then there's a crossing hook strike. Then there's a sidestep strike. Okay, a double overhead slam, which of course grabs the shoulders. A low knife. Oh snap, I can't remember. Oh, yeah, like a low leg strike. Okay, and then the actual pierce and pull. That would pierce their shoulders and pull their body downwards from down what you'd probably come over and tap the spine. And then there's a low X. And then there's a face guard. Nah. That was exciting. And then finally there's a double edge attack, which the Kung Fu styles would add in the cross step like this. crossed up is gay. I try to avoid it. Alright, here are the more advanced and very traditional book storage forms. Notice I'm in a different stance. This is my personal favorite stance, like this. Alright? This is my stance. I basically made this stance. This is the non-classical stance. And then this is the traditional stance. These are the advanced traditional ones. First move is cat catches mouse. One more time. The next one, hawks. I'll show you hawks turns in flight in a second. Next one is the steel ox plow. Next one. No, that was a logger chop. This is a logger chop. Steel ox plow is like this. And it's often followed by a move called emerging dragon. And then finally there's a basic knee strike. If your opponent is standing there with a staff, like this, and they jab at you, you X block to block, kicking it up, step in, penetrate their knees with your knives at the end of your weapon. Now we'll go outside to show you hawk turns in flight. Like this next move is hawk turns in flight. Named for obvious reasons. Cut! Alright, and then finally the hook sword can be hooked into one weapon and swung around your body to create a large space. This was used mainly during warfare when the remaining opponents are one. They do this to clear some space. Most practitioners of hook swords will only spin in one circle. I have taken to reversing the spinning. I can do it vertically, and then change directions again, vertically if I want. And I can even change directions once more. Once you finish, the hard part is catching the other end without cutting yourself on the mini hook sword blade. That is the basic hook sword purchase. Alright, that was a little bit weird, filming oneself, talking about things, but can't feel it's necessary. 1 second. Where did I get started in martial arts? Well, I like to play Mortal Kombat a lot, and I got started there. I played Mortal Kombat and I wanted to do the moves in the movie. And so my dad took me to the school for Kuk Sool, which was a kind of like all the martial arts put together, mashed together to create one style. Kuk Sool, I believe, translated into Korean martial arts, something real simple like that. I did that for about a half a year, I think. And I learned the bare basics. I learned like basic stance and how to do a side kick and a hook kick and straight punch and just the bare basics. I learned like tons of breakaways and throws and stuff like that. And then we moved down to Mississippi, and I didn't do martial arts for a little bit, and then I ended up getting involved in another Kuk Sool school. And I had to be taught all over because I forgot all the stuff that I learned when I was a kid. And so that basically was, but the problem was the teachers never wanted to do any sparring. And I always figured, how the heck can you learn how to fight if you never, they can tell you how to fight all you want, but unless you're actually in a fight, you can't learn. You can't learn to swim without getting in the water. They can tell you, okay, you do this and you kick your legs all you want, but if they dump you in that water, you're going to have a lot of difficulty and you're not going to do very well. And that's the way it's going to work. And so they didn't want to do sparring, and I felt they were more just into the workout of Kuk Sool as opposed to the actual fighting style, so I quit that. So I basically just tried to retain what I knew, and I practiced as often as I could. I taught a friend for a little bit, just the small bit that I knew. And then I started getting involved in the animal styles. I started really enjoying learning things like snake and mantis and crane and eagle's claw. You know, all those, and of course drunken boxing. But I just basically copied what I saw on movies and stuff. And then one day I wanted to get really serious about it, and I decided that snake would probably be the best one because that was the closest one to Hook's one. It looked real stilted, and that's what I was looking for. So I went to the bookstore looking for a snake book, and I couldn't find any, but I did stumble across a book written by Bruce Lee uh, about his philosophy, Jeet Kune Do. I got really involved in that, like crazy for about a year, and I taught one of my friends as I went along with it. And Jeet Kune Do basically enlightened me. I realized that, you know, there is no one right style, and I shouldn't be trying to learn all these different styles. I should just be learning how to fight. I don't need to fight like a snake. I'm not a snake. I'm a human being. I have 2 arms and 2 legs. I need to fight like a human being, and I need to learn to fight other human beings, and the snake would not be effective in a street fight. So from there on, I learned just about all there was to learn about Jeet Kune Do, all the moves, all the philosophy, and then I moved on and I learned a little bit of Jiu-Jitsu. I learned a couple moves from a black belt friend of mine, and I also learned a lot of moves. I learned how to headbutt from a guy named Michael Zamansky, who was taught by, I think, his grandfather. All right. Here's a quick idea of what Jeet Kune Do is. If one would ask, you know, why should you never draw back before striking, even though it makes more power? If you draw back before striking, you're going to show your opponent that you're about to hit. So you want to just hit from wherever you are. Just, you know, just real snappy and get it done with. You know, what's wrong with having a wide, long roundhouse as opposed to a quick snapping one? You know, like what's wrong with like as opposed to being like you know, something like that. Well, the snappy one, even though it lacks power, it will get the hit almost every single time. The wide, long roundhouse easily blocked by a knee. If that roundhouse hits your knee, the practitioner doing the roundhouse is going to get their shin probably broken. You know, why a stance is like crane in practice. Well, crane involves being on one foot and having your arms apart. Duh. If your arms apart, you're saying, beat me up. That's why I find it funny if somebody comes up to me and like, what boy? You know, I'm saying like, hey, you're all open. Why are you doing that? You know, is that supposed to be threatening? You saying, hey, go ahead, hit me? Because, and the fight's over, you know? I got your Adam's apple, you're on the ground, crying because I dislocated. But yeah, basically crane's impractical because one, it leaves yourself open, and it's also on one foot. I just take out that foot and you're on the ground. And I know if you're doing something as silly as crane, you probably don't know how to grapple. Why are non-weapon fighting katas useless to the martial way? Well, the martial art is the art form of it. You know, the beauty, like kung fu and things like that. You know, real fancy movements, you know, stuff like that. You know, just real fancy stuff. You know, they're all like, you know, that's all the fanciness, the beauty, that's the art. The martial way is what I wanted to learn. And katas, they are the art form. They are the equivalent to a painting or a dance. A deadly dance, but a dance nonetheless. That's what katas are to me. What's the difference between martial art and martial way? Martial art is everything that involves fighting, whether it works or not. If it's beautiful, we're going to keep it because it's beautiful and it's gorgeous. And I respect people who do martial arts as long as they realize that, you know, certain moves and certain throws aren't going to work in a street fight. I just don't want to be thick-headed. And the martial way is anything that does not work in the streets is thrown out. Name the pros and cons of point sparring. Point sparring is where the two people are fighting, and once you get a hit in, you stop fighting. And then you go in and you get another point. the silly thing about that is yeah, the pros is it teaches you how to get in a hit. That's good. I'm glad that they're teaching the students how to get in a hit, but the problem is no fight happens that way. You cannot win a fight with one punch as long as you're equal. You know, if you've been training like all your life or whatever, and you're going against like an amateur, yeah, you might be able to win the fight with one punch, but I wouldn't bank on it. A fight is generally like 3 minutes long if it's between two people who know what they're doing, and if it's two people who don't know what they're doing, it's like 5-6 seconds. It's just they're on the ground and someone's lost. So point sparring is silly because, you know, fights don't happen like that. And why is fighting a man with a club easy? Well, that's basically because if they really want to hit you to knock you out, they have to pull back, and when they pull back, that's when you get them. That's basic Jeet Kune Do for you.
Recording, I can't really tell.
All right, and the more advanced defending, these series of questions I call defending the martial way, because that's what I've come to believe in when it comes to fighting. You know, explain why the phrase "the Chinese way of fighting is the best way of fighting" is incorrect. Because there is no one right way of fighting. Lots of times you come across, you know, 8th degree black belts in one style, and they are convinced their style is the best. It's more rare nowadays, but I have come across them, and they think theirs is better than anybody's. You'll see kung fu people argue with karate people. Kung fu people saying, "Oh, our style's the best. You guys is nothing but rah rah rah," a bunch of screaming. And then karate people will argue, "Hey, you kung fu people are nothing but dancing." You know what? They're both right. The reason why there is no such thing as best way of fighting is because one way of fighting may work for you, but it's not going to work for somebody else. Like somebody who's learning judo, if they're 7 foot, Kareem Al-Jabbar, I think his name is, that basketball player. He learned under Bruce Lee, and he said, "This is why there is no one right way of fighting." Judo is a very, very effective style. Most judo practitioners would argue that this is the right way to fight. But the problem is, if you're 7 foot tall like he is, can you picture him trying to get his hip up under, you know, a 5'3" dude? It's not going to work that way. You know, so you need to be formless in order to fit in with everything. Basically, you do what works when it works. So there is no one right way of fighting, because if you say that, you're too limited. And we don't need to be limited. We need to be free. What did Bruce Lee most likely mean when he said, "Be formless, shapeless like water"? Just what I was talking about. If you can get to the point, your basic goal is to be like water. Because water can fit in with anything. You pour it in a glass and it becomes a glass. So, if you pour it in a glass, it becomes the glass. I mean, you put me up against a kung fu fighter, I suddenly become a grappler who could beat the kung fu fighter. And if you put me up against someone who's in judo, I suddenly become a stand fighter. So I can beat the person who wants to grapple me. So that's what he means, be formless. You can't be stilted, because if you're a kung fu guy trying to go against a grappler, you're probably going to lose. Why do they say Jeet Kune Do is not the best form of fighting? Because Jeet Kune Do 1 isn't a form of fighting. Jeet Kune Do is a philosophy. It may have, you know, this is a good way. See, instead of saying this is the right way to punch, this is the right way to kick, they say this is a good way to kick. This is a good way to punch. Because, you know, it may be different. You know, I don't always punch. Bruce Lee punched with his bottom 3 knuckles. I punch with my top 2 because my bottom 3 knuckles are very weak. So I punch with my top 2. I learned that so, you know, it works for me, and that worked for him. So, the basic concept in Jeet Kune Do is to throw away the useless stuff and master the stuff that works. End of the story. Explain the quote, Jeet Kune Do is to liberate, not to blind. Lots of martial arts styles blind their students because they say this is the best way of fighting, and they get all restricted. And so they're blinded to the fact that there's all these other ways of fighting that could help them become a better fighter. Jeet Kune Do liberates, because what Jeet Kune Do says is once you've learned what I have to teach you, I want you to go out and learn other styles and apply what I've taught you to those styles. And then come back and be better than me.